You just get to hear our mugs
That's right.
for the audio intro. We're going to tell you why this is the case.
Uh-oh.
What's going on, guys?
That
How are
was
you?
quick. That was quick. What happened to the music?
I cut. Okay, so we have problems. So before we roll, we're gonna bring Ben in a second. But before we get Ben in here to start the show, welcome to Jig Squad. I am Mike Murphy, aka Kuda. If you're in chat right now, we welcome you. If you're listening on replay, we welcome you as well. The guy to the next to me is the MOC, the Minister of Culture. You're starting to learn this term,
That's
Mr.
right.
Epic Eric. Eric, how
Good to
are you
see you,
this
man.
evening?
I'm good, man. I've been down in the lab cooking some stuff up, man, and
I love it.
I got from Andrew at SDG Lurecraft my little box, and let me tell
With
you
a
something,
sticker.
brother.
With a sticker.
With a sticker, a beautiful note, very spiritual. Look at the box that it came in, and I got to tell you, it looks good online, but it's even better in person. So I'm gonna give him a little shout out. I think he's watching.
Yes, let's see it.
Man, dude, are you kidding me? It's like, look at these freaking football heads, these swing heads with this. This is beautiful. And he pours the plastics too. Custom colors. I mean, dude, how sweet is that, man? Look at that thing, dude.
It's
Look at that
beautiful.
thing.
I
So
love the blue and a
it's
little
a
GP.
round rubber. You got a little bit of hair, you got a little bit of the flash in there, which is nice. I think it's Flash Boomerage. Tell us about that, Andrew, if you're checking it out. Look at the head,
Nice.
the paint job, man. I mean, premium hook. The plastic is a laminate. It's like a green pumpkin top with a little light blue highlight on the bottom, man. It is fine work, dude.
A little
If
Magic Cross spectacular right
if
there.
if that ain't going to get a big nasty smallmouth in New York to just crush this
Oh,
thing,
yes.
I don't even know, man. But I mean, so
Beautiful, dude.
yeah, so I mean, multiple colors, including the black and blue. That was like that was like the bluegill. Here's your brown version, man. Look at the bottom of that
Oh,
thing.
look at the little copper going on there,
Little
too.
copper flake, forget about it. And then the black and blue for you.
Ah,
I mean,
see.
oh baby.
Fantastico.
Yeah, and then he's got little smaller versions, the 1/8 ounce. Oh my god, little snack morsel sizes. He
I
just
love
killed
it.
dude. He just killed it. He killed it. He
And
killed
for
it.
anyone in chat that doesn't know, so Adam from SDG Custom Lorecraft was on the show last week. He's in
Mm-hmm.
chat right now. So some of these creations that Eric's holding up is Adam. So a lot of other people in chat tonight. We got Matt Acevedo, Brian's Custom Tackle, Ken, Vince,
Dude, put a
fishing the
thing.
262. Look at this.
Put a
Eric's gonna keep showing.
put a
Look at the swing hook on that.
Put a Senko on that. This is just a jig skirt, man, with a tie on the front, a
Absolutely
Senko across,
beautiful.
like weightless. Are you kidding me?
Look at all these good things. Gary Sheets, 9K Elite Lures in the house. David Toll,
Mm,
Trippy Sticks, my
that's
crappie
just hot.
man that I think catches crazy bass stuff. All right, you guys, listen, before we get into this a little bit more, Eric's already pulling out the juice. Before we
Have to.
bring Ben in, Eric already made a comment. What happened to the music? Guys, they dinged me again.
Oh no.
The epidemic sound, these mothers, they dinged me again, and I challenged it, and I won the challenge. But I'm not interested in playing this game. I put in my rebuttal. I go, hey, listen, are we going to do this every week? I said, because I'm not interested in getting dinged all the time. So I'm protesting. I took the music out. I lowered it
That's
down. Just some graphics for now. And this is unfortunately what we're going to have to deal with. So
wow.
I know it's okay. We're here. Hey, real quick before we bring Ben in, many of you have noticed that the show changed this week. It was supposed to be Ryan Whitaker from Tightrope Fishing, my OG Chicago buddy who lives not even 10 miles away from me. He is under the weather. We knew this during the beginning of the week, and we said, let's wait and see how this goes. Last minute on Wednesday, we had to change it. And so I had to call in a ringer on the back end. And so,
Nice.
why we're talking about that, let's just go add him to the stream right now. And I am very happy to welcome Mr. Benjamin Nowak. And Ben, you got to tell me as we get you in, is it Nowak or Nowak?
It's Nowak.
See, us Chicago guys are going to call you Nowak. I listen to Rudd call you Nowak all the time, and I'm thinking that's just his Tennessee charm from down there.
Yeah, man. Like up north, it's just super Polish. Like around here, it's just everything is Polish, right? So
got you.
All the A's are O's, and everything is weird. And yeah, it's just weird.
Hey, listen, you're a fellow Midwesterner, and we were very excited to have you tonight. Come to us with a lot of experience, right? A lot of Great Lakes, smallmouth impoundments up north. But also you're a jig maker too. And I
Yeah,
think,
I love it, man.
and a lot of people don't know this about you, that you have so not only do you have the Benjamin Nowak fishing experience YouTube channel, you have another channel too. You
Yep.
want to tell everyone a little bit about that channel as well?
Yeah, so what I saw was a lot of the engagement from like the regular fishing dudes on my channel, they didn't really translate into the bait making stuff. So as I made baits or as I started talking about bait making, like some guys were interested and some guys just weren't. I'm like, well,
Mm-hmm.
there's not a whole lot out there with just jig making or just bait making. There's like a handful of channels, and that's why I think like what you're doing is so cool with guys that are really passionate about it. And so I just created the bait making channel, and all I do over there is strictly focus on jigs and soft plastics and experiencing and growing with me, because I'd not done soft plastics until I built that channel, and like kind of
Yeah.
sharing the learning experience too that goes into all of this, because there is a lot of it. There's a lot of it. So yeah.
Very cool.
I saw a jig you made the other day with some round rubber, some flash, and just
Yeah.
kind of tutorial of walking people through it. So if anyone's out there and you're wondering like how to get started with this, Ben has some pretty cool videos up. I think that the jig making channel is linked down below. If it's not, I'll add it later. But Ben's YouTube channel is down below. And
Thank you,
then
man.
of course you can chase Ben down on Instagram as well. Here at BR Nowak_fishing.
Thanks
So
for having me on, dude. I was excited to get the invite and come over and chat with you guys, because I think there's so much that a lot of people don't know about jig making and bait making, and really kind of what it all boils down to, which
mhm.
is our passion for fishing and tinkering with things to make them better than you can buy them. So I
Yeah,
Heck
appreciate you
yeah.
having me on.
absolutely. I mean, I think for years it seems that the big talk all the time is about, hair jigs and the funny thing is that and you have a couple of videos up on your YouTube page specifically about making hair jigs and talking about what goes into that and what some of your kind of tweaks that you make to it. And that's the thing, like it seems that everyone has kind of a different angle of some different fit and function for what goes into a hair jig. But specifically with Marabou, Ben,
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about that. So like philosophically, and we're going to hit you up on another concept too, because actually we're going to infuse it in, because the Jig Squad experience is about, Eric's smiling, is about three things, right? We start talking about flow, color, and design. And basically those things can be combined or mean different things to everyone. But as you talk to us a little bit about what some of your philosophies are going into making Marabou jigs, include those thoughts in your head, and Eric and I will jump in
sure.
and grill you a little bit more. But go ahead, you tell us about what your philosophies are about Marabou jigs on
Yeah.
the Great Lakes.
So honestly, the biggest thing that I had noticed was there weren't a lot of great Marabou jigs that were like moderately expensive. Like I don't want to go spend $8 or $6 on a Marabou jig, because it's literally just Marabou hair that you can get at the dollar store and a jig head, right? And a lot of times when you pay for a Marabou head, what you're paying for is like a premium hook. Like if a bait
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have a premium hook, and it doesn't have the right amount of hair on the bait, like you're not going to get the bait to act the correct way, but you're also not going to be able to like land as many fish as you probably should. And so the biggest complaint I had was I just didn't want to spend that much money, and none of them had a hook that I really loved in it.
Mm.
And to kind of build on that, like the biggest issue I'd have, the best hook that was out there for it was a Gamakatsu. I think it was a Gamakatsu 114, or it was basically just your standard 90-degree Gamakatsu light wire hook.
604 and then 114. So the
Yep.
114, I believe, is the light wire, and then
Yep.
604 is supposed to be a little more robust. But frankly, I think it's thin profile as well. But
Yeah.
those are standard. Okay, so go ahead,
Yep.
keep going.
So then I kind of played around. I still think the best head out there for it is the Do It Worm Nose Jig Mold, which is like a little bit more of a mushroom shape. But for me, I just never got my hands on it. So I've been tying them on just a standard Ned head. This is a Midwest finesse head.
Yeah.
But the key for me is the hook that I put in this thing, which is the Gamakatsu 111. And I don't know if it's going to do a great job of showing it, But
Here,
that
let me try
111,
and blow you up here, Ben.
that
Yeah,
111
go full
Oh,
screen.
let's move you over here.
is
There we go.
that Sproat bend or that O'Shaughnessy bend hook. So essentially, instead of just being your standard round bend hook, it sort of, I guess, comes up and starts to round off a little bit further down the shaft of the hook, and then it comes to a point at the end here, like a more defined hook to it. And the biggest thing I've noticed is obviously it's super light wire. This is a 1/0 size. But it just pins them and it keeps them hooked. Like it seems like every time they get hooked on this thing, they don't come off. Like I don't have fish pull off. It's sort of that in between gauge wire. Like it's not as light as a 114. It's not as heavy as the 604. Like that for me is the best hook that you can get on the market for it. And the other big thing is it's actually got a really, really long, connection point between where the hook meets and it bends up to come to the line tie. And so I don't tend to get a lot of grass on it if I'm fishing on grass. It just tends to come through it a lot better. So that's really the setup as far as like the jig head goes and the hook.
Now, function, Ben, now before you go on from that, I just want to make a point to this is my opinion. I'm going to throw this out there just because we're talking about it, right? So the deal, the fit and function of an O'Shaughnessy hook, right? And frankly, I kind of got turned on to some of these things by two worlds. One is by watching the saltwater fishermen, and then two, by listening to Ben talk about using the O'Shaughnessy hook on specifically hair jigs. And I started to notice that other creators were talking about that as well. So the deal with that bend in an O'Shaughnessy is because it's not this wider round bend and it actually narrows down a little bit and closes how much it can move and sway. It's supposed to lock the fish up. So once you set that hook, they're kind of in that corner of that bend down. Now, if it's a straight round bend hook, you've just got more movement for that jig to move in a fish's mouth. So I think it's a great concept. Let me ask you, Ben, what do you think of that 111 in terms of how stout it is for fit and function on that hair jig? Your experience has been what?
It's actually like in between a 114 and a 604. So like your 604 is your standard hook. But if you start to look at wire diameter and you start to look at like the actual pliability of this hook, like you can bend it if you put a little bit of pressure on it. Like there's a little bit of play in it.
Okay.
But a lot of times it's not as much as a 114. 114 I just didn't really love.
Okay.
But at the same point, I'm using a pretty light rod, so I need a light hook. Like the rod I'm using, a lot of times if I'm throwing like a 3/32 or a 1/16 or even a 1/8, right, which doesn't sound like it's that light, but when you got a piece of fur on the back of this thing, like
you put a little piece of Senko on there, right, to help the casting. I kind of saw that.
That's just a little piece of Maxent on there. I mean, I'm a big believer in Maxent. I think it plays a little different.
Ben Trippy Sticks is asking. He goes, "Would you describe it as a wide gap?"
Not so much a wide gap. If you were to look at this, I don't have another hook next to me. The only real difference is that. Hold on. Only real difference is where that hook starts to bend. So it's very much like a straight, straight hook. It just bends a little bit further down and comes to more of a point. So like you said, when those fish get this bait, like they get caught here a lot. It doesn't have a lot of movement. Like they're not moving this way and they're not moving obviously back up towards the hook point. So they very rarely come off. It's just more of a pointed style hook.
I started to fish with a swim jig with an O'Shaughnessy style hook, and I am loving the hookup, the strike to catch to land ratio.
Is it a light wire hook that you're using, or is it
it's well, this is a good example of it. So I'll hold mine up. It's medium gauge, I guess, medium wire. It's not a heavy gauge hook. And I mean, I'm fishing in the junk. I mean, I'm fishing Potomac and Upper Bay grass, and so far, 17-pound fluoro, and I'm not having any problem with it. I'm not going to braid. I experimented with braid, and it didn't work for me. But 17-pound fluoro, and super happy with the results. So I think Tom Mansour tied one at one point with an O'Shaughnessy style hook. Round bend, I just feel like it just has a lot of movement, but that O'Shaughnessy, you're right, it pins them for sure. So somebody was asking a question. This is just relating to the swim jig with a 90 degree versus a swim jig with like a 30 or a 60 or whatever degree that they're tying them with. How come you don't see swim jigs with 90 degree? I don't know if that would go through the grass great or not. Like 90 degrees seems like it would hang up a ton. So you need that angle to slip through cover, in particular grass, not open water swim jigging.
Yeah. Well, the other big thing about that 90, right, is like I find if I'm really retrieving a bait slow, it helps keep that bait super horizontal.
Okay, so level in the water column.
Yeah, like the way that bait is actually swimming, it wants to stay more horizontal.
Right on.
If I'm like a swim jig, right, I'm moderate pace typically and like moving that bait a lot. I want it to follow that line. So I don't care so much if it's a little bit nose up. Like that bait's moving. I just need it to come through cover and follow where my rod's going.
Right on.
And that's philosophically the same way I use with whether it be a ball head or any 90 style hook. And here, look at like Brian just made a comment. Owner 5313. Sometimes depending on the quantity amounts, you'll see them labeled as 5318s. They're very close, right? 1 and 1 on. All right, that's a great question. So Brian says 1 and 1 on. So regardless of whether it's an O'Shaughnessy, a Gamakatsu, an Owner, a Victory hook, whatever you're using, what do you prefer on your hair jig sizes in terms of aught?
So I'm using, this is a 1/0, but it is actually the way that it is built. It's a longer hook. So like it's actually probably a 2/0 in that Owner. It's a lot longer travel between where your line tie is to where the bend is. And
that's got to be helping you with hookup ratio, man. Just having a longer shank, you're getting the same profile Marabou is like the fighter fly, which is, one of those $7 flies, and it's a round bend and it's a much shorter shank. That's a much longer hook. That's got to play in.
It's a lot longer. Well, and it kind of, we'll touch on it later, but it kind of goes to the way that I'm fishing it too. Like there are a lot of times that I'll fish this bait and like dead stick it and slow drag it on the bottom.
Interesting.
And so like it kind of goes to that too, just especially when those fish are nosing down on it and they're just grabbing at it. But there is a time where I actually think like a longer hook sucks, right? Like a longer hook takes away from the action of the bait. Because the biggest thing with hair, and a lot of the hair that I've bought in the past, it's so short, right? Like you get these hair jigs and they're really poofy and they're really bulky, but the hair's like right at the back end of the hook.
Yeah.
And what happens is that hair has no movement, right?
No flow.
Right. The benefit of the hair on it, no flow. The benefit of the hair though is that hand flow, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the deal, is it has a lot of natural movement. It lives, it breathes in the water. And when it's longer behind that bait, it might be super subtle, but if it's not like shaking, it's not a good hair jig.
Yeah. So I've struggled finding premium Marabou. Like you get a variety of hacked up junk from different suppliers.
That's a great comment.
Where you take the Marabou from off the premium Marabou. So you're like out of a package of Marabou that you buy. A, I want to know where you buy it. B, I want to know how much do you actually end up using versus throwing away, because you don't want the quill in it, right? You want the flowy fibers. So talk to me about where you getting your Marabou, man, because that looks like some flowy stuff.
I was all about like buying Hairline Extra Select and buying like the super premium like hair jigs or bags of hair.
Right.
And then what I started to realize is you can go to Joann Fabrics and they have these big bags of hair. It's like a pound of hair, right? And it's like $6. It's literally it's the most amount of Marabou you'll ever see. The problem is you literally like can dump out 3/4 or a third of the bag.
Yeah.
But it's like $6. The biggest thing
you have to sort through it no matter where you get it.
Yep.
And
you can only use certain, like if you want a certain length, you can only pull it off certain parts of the quill anyways. So
but you can use the junk to do stuff like that. And we'll get to this later. What? Bait hack alert. Bait hack alert. I'm sorry.
What's going on? Hold that up again. It looked like a crucifix. What is that?
So when you go to Joann's and you get that 3/4 bag or a pound of hair, And you get all the stuff you need for your Marabou jigs. And I'm not trying to
Okay.
steal anybody's idea. Look, there are baits on the market that are like this. I put
Oh.
a little. This is like a rabbit bait, guys. This is a Gajo Spirit shad, and I
Yes.
just used some hacked up ends. This has been sitting on my desk for a while, so I put a little bit of silicone in there. You can put round rubber, whatever, and then just shitty pieces of Marabou that's left over, and you could sexy up your Senko, your Spirit shad, or whatever. And you can use two different things to do it. This is called a dental floss threader. I'll show you how to use that. Or you can get yourself a baiting needle. And they were on sale at Dick's for $247. It's nothing but a needle with a hole in it. And that'll stick through any plastic. And what's really cool about that is you can take yourself a jig. And then if you want just 2 strands of orange in the bottom of your jig, use that baiting needle or this little dental floss threader. And you can precisely put Flash Boom, Mirage, whatever you want, anywhere you want in any jig that you have and bought from the store. That's your bait hack alert for the evening from the Bass Lab.
That's a great,
dude.
That's a great idea. So that's Rabid Baits. I mean, it's one of the.
This is not a rabbit bait. This is a Bass Lab bait.
That's a custom.
Right. Hats off to rabbit bait. So you could put hair and fur and feather and flash and anything that your brain can think of, and use your bait needle or your dental floss threader.
It's such cool function, Eric.
Yeah.
I mean, easy and cool things to do. So, honestly, like Brian, my buddy from Brian's Custom Tackle, he's going to be coming on the show in a few weeks. Brian says, he goes, 25% of it's in the can, and then Brian Tesh is he goes, you got to go straight to the chicken, man.
That's what that dental floss threader is. It's a loop in hard plastic. If you have really tight teeth, you stick this through and put your floss through, and you pull it through your teeth, you get your floss underneath teeth that you can't fit floss through from the top.
Eric,
get it?
Do me a favor. Just pull out that magnifying glass real quick while we have you enlarged. Just do the magnifying glass when we got you big right now. See, this is what we show. Yes. This is it. This is what we need to see.
You put it in the special section so you get a little glint of that purple. Oh, baby. Yeah, and Hella Bass, he's now got a bait cam. He's got a second camera for up close bait shots. So he said,
did he set it up? Because I know he was talking about it.
He said the magnifying glass inspired him. So anyway, there you go.
This is beautiful stuff. So, so the material. All right. So somebody was saying earlier, like sometimes you could see so much. I think it was Sean Lai. Sean Lai said sometimes I've seen hair jigs that had so much material on them it limited action. So here's something I want to say, and you guys either tell me no way, Murph, or add to whatever as you see fit. So one of the things that I want to say about Marabou jigs is that one of the predominant ways that people talk about using Marabou jigs is on a straight retrieve. I personally believe there's other ways of using it, and I bet everyone else has other ways too. But on a straight retrieve, do you know what a Marabou jig looks like?
I do.
It's wall watered down. It's not flowing all over the place. You have to go so slow even to get any movement out of the tails. So all I'm going to say is for everyone saying about action on a Marabou jig looks like nothing in the water sometimes when you're retrieving it on a straight retrieve. Fair play. Any other comments based on that?
No, I do think if you go too much, like here's a hair jig. Okay, there's a difference. So if you look at this hair jig, which is big, bulky, like there's a ton of hair on this thing. And you look at this hair jig, which like there's a totally different amount of hair on these.
Mm-hmm.
This one here is one that I'm going to put on the bottom. Like this has a ton of hair on it.
Mm-hmm.
And this is going to move and it's going to flow and it's going to be pretty big and bulky. But like these ones that I'm swimming, like all I want it to do, streamline down, be a piece of black leech or small bait fish, or I think they feed on caddis a lot.
Mm-hmm.
This just needs to look like this coming through the water. It doesn't need to look like a big bulky profile. So I don't use that much hair, but I do think like there's a difference if you're going to put it on the bottom versus if you're going to swim it, like the amount of hair that I put on these
right
things.
on. Talk to me about that little flash you got on the side of that, man.
Mm-hmm.
Is that UV or is that just straight up purple?
That's just straight purple.
Is that your favorite black purple combo right there?
Yeah,
number
black
one producer.
Purple. This is number one. There's only really like 3 colors that I throw, and I could just narrow down to 2. Like most of the time, I'm throwing black. Like I just want to be able to see it, and so I can see if there's a big thing behind it, right? Like I just want to know where it's at. And the other one is a very specific application, which is when there's a mayfly hatch. Then I'll go to brown white, basically this color, but in the swimming here.
What'd you put in that? So listen, I'll tell you why I asked that, because I'm going to be going up to Mille Lacs right into literally the first couple of days of June.
Mille Lacs.
Yes, and I'm
Land
excited.
Of the giant.
And I don't know if I'm going to hit the mayfly hatches, but all I know is I'm going to tie some jigs specifically to try and have that opportunity. And it's a shame because I know like Gussie and those guys aren't going to be up there then, because I think they're going to be on, good gosh, the St. John's that week. I'm not sure. But I'm excited to go up to Mille Lacs specifically and throw something else besides black marabou jigs for the bug hatches up there too. I'll have to talk to like Hellabass and those guys, because these are the guys up there that really know that hatch. That's a famous hatch up there, and I'd like to be prepared and ready to go. You know,
the other crazy thing, I've heard of guys throwing like just tan or just like beige, right? And it matches that those bugs really well. I think Fighter has a color that he likes. Like he talks about it matching the nymphs really, really well. It's like a light green beige color.
Okay. There was a really great episode of him actually fishing the hair jig on YouTube. It's with his buddies. They tied some in the studio and then they went out and fished them. And I think they showed some underwater footage of what it looks like. So it was a really in-depth video. I thought it was pretty good. So and I don't know if he showed that color, but he had a box of them.
So here's another topic that I think doesn't always get talked about, but it plays off of what we're talking about regarding the amount of hair used in creating a marabou jig. So the difference, what Ben or Eric, anyone, or even in chat, the difference between palmering, right, and then also pulling the hair off the spline of the feather and then layering it on. Palmering gives. I'll throw a comment out to start it. Palmering throws a fantastic volume of hair equally around the circumference of the jig. Wow, that sounded really nice, didn't it?
Buddha.
The problem is,
like, man, this is so...
master technician. Like you've been doing this the flow master.
But the problem is, there are times where that hair does not create the amount of flow that you possibly would want on a hook, right? So Ben Tess says in chat a little bit, he goes, the amount of hair you use and how you tie it in plays a huge part in how it moves and has action in the water. So I don't know, what are your thoughts on the difference between palmering and how that profile looks on a jig compared to stacking? I don't know. I never used the word stack for marabou, but you get the concept. For anyone listening in chat that doesn't know what we're saying, you're actually pulling the hair off of the main, what is it called? The main spline?
Stem?
The main stem of the marabou. So you're literally just getting that little bit of white left, and you're not having that as part of your tie-in.
Yeah. So I have a buddy that likes to use the palmer approach or palmering or whatever, where he like wraps the whole thing. And it is beautiful when you take it out of the, when it's coming out of the box, it's beautiful. It's like, it looks fairly full, but it's a lot lighter, the total amount of hair. Like I actually I would say use about 5 to 6 full pieces of marabou of those. I mean, they're not great pieces, right? Like, but 5 to 6 layers on this hair jig. So it's not a ton of hair, but I just don't think you can get the same volume, like the same length and like
for sure length
volume.
I would agree with you.
Length for me is the biggest thing on a hair jig. Like if I want it to swim, if I want it to have that little shimmy, which I really like on the back end of the hair jig.
Yes.
And if you guys have ever fished it, right, in the comments, you'll notice like on a good hair jig, there's a little shimmy on the tail of that hair.
That's everything, right? That's it. That's all it takes. Think about a spy bait. It's not doing much, but they bite the hell out of it.
Yeah.
I personally can't get that action by palmering on the hair jigs, on the marabou jigs that I've made. I do like marabou jigs.
It's long enough.
It's not long enough, and I personally agree with how you described that. Now, I will say this: I do have palmer hair jigs, and I make them in 2 different colors, and I'm trying to expand. Like I will tie some new things up for Mille Lacs, but I tie it in black and then I tie it in a pink and white combo.
Hmm.
And I throw these specifically, I will use them for sight fishing. Actually, I will specifically use the white and pink one for sight fishing, and I will even tie it on a heavier head, sometimes as heavy as 3/8 ounce.
Well,
I
that's
probably
super
never,
interesting.
I
got a
probably
crazy
never should have
solution
just said
for you.
what I just said. But let's be honest, if it's a betting fish, I mean, there's probably about 10 other things you can use too to get them to go. Long hackle, Brian Tesh.
How long is that hook? Like, is the hook basically at the back end of the hair for you?
So I don't even know if I have one here. If I got a pink and white one, I don't know if it's in this box.
Because we have an issue with, especially when you go to throw a tube on a bed, right?
Yes.
Like, I'll take a mini tube and I'll put a hook in it that's literally at the tails of the tube. So the second they go to touch it, like they're hooked.
So I don't have
one. They
one.
know what's going on.
I don't have one right up here with me, but basically what I'll do is I'll do 2 sets of palmering. So I will palmer down, and then I will also, for whatever reason, when I do it this way, sometimes I will start my palmering up top towards the head, so I get it where I want, and I'll start going down, and I'll palmer until I get it to the point where I still have some length, right?
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, you have to be real picky on the Marabou you're going to use then. So you're literally having to pull for that second palmering. You have to pull the longest feathers out that you basically have in the bag. But you can get away with 2 feathers of Marabou if you want to palmer on a jig. It's not going to be as crazy in size, but it's just a different color, and it gives a little bit of this tail action that you don't normally see.
I gotta laugh at something that came in the comment section from Tacklecraft about Sean. Sean is like the best at supporting all the lives and the podcasts.
He's amazing.
Yeah. So he said, "Can you release your podcast viewing calendar?"
Sean is an active member of the community.
Yes.
Inclusive
Sean,
of all locations.
He's been on Smallmouth Crush. I mean, he's one of the few viewers that's come on one of the lives.
Yeah.
Hey, the most exciting I ever seen Sean and hats off to him. I think Travis tells him, he's like, and I didn't even know this because I was up in Sturgeon Bay the same time Travis was last summer, right? And he calls me in the morning. I'm having my coffee one morning and goes, "Hey, I'm looking around." He had a tournament up there. And he called in the morning. He goes, "Where have you guys been fishing?" I'm like, "We're up in Rowley's Bay, man." And I didn't know this, and he never even said to me that Sean was coming up. And next thing I know, a video comes out. Travis calls Sean and says, "Hey, Brohim, Broski," whatever he calls him. And Sean heads up north, leaves early in the morning to go and fish for the day with Travis. And I tell you what, he was so excited about it. What dedication, and what a fantastic guy supporting all these channels. Sean is a fantastic dude, and I love him to death. And I have not met him in person, but I'm excited. One of these days, we're going to have to get in the car together and head to one of these smallmouth events that we hopefully get together one day. So he's awesome.
I gotta ask Ben a question. All right, so you're avid smallmouth guy. I'm going to show a couple things with Marabou. It's the Marabou show. It's not a jig. This is my everlasting drop shot or gobstotter.
Yes,
it's like Willy Wonka.
He just likes the name.
Bro. I do, man. So look, so man, would you drop shot that, bro?
Yes, I drop. Well, I don't use one with the little tail on it, but I drop shot Marabou.
So I mean, that's just got a little. I gotta get the magnifier down for this thing,
man.
Right?
Hold on. Let's make the big, Brohim.
Come on, man. This is tied on a Gamakatsu BS Stinger, right?
Oh, that hook is the deal too.
That's the deal, man. Right? I mean, that thing when it
B10S, baby,
B10S Stinger, man. And then I tied a white red, right? Not that that's a great colorway for smallmouth, but I don't know. Maybe it would work. And then the plan was to put some scent on that tail, right? Dip it in some gulp or something like that so it doesn't jam up your Marabou. And then a black one, man, with a little red in there. I've tied them with purple. I've tied them with all, but I think it would be dope, man. Like in the water, this thing, like I put it in my little candy jar with water, and the flow and the tail, it's just something about it, man.
Let me run that
the
flow.
Please run that flow. I'm going to take these up to New York with Travis and try it when we go fish with Will.
Hey,
St. Lawrence.
I'm so intrigued by this thing, especially because like we see max scent really play a huge role. Like everyone talks to flatworm, everyone talks to flatworm and to death, right?
Yeah.
And I think on super pressure bodies of water, right? Like having that scent makes a difference.
Sure.
But like, do you think it even comes down to having like specific actions anymore, or it's just all about having a different scent to your bait?
Man, that's a great question. Like, I would just douse the tail in smelly jelly, Bass Feast UV or something like that, or get squeeze some max scent worms together, dip it in Procure because it would absorb and hold it. But you're right, man. You got to wonder. But I mean, honestly, it's so funny. I mean, I've been a part of it. Like I was dropping with Travis and I was throwing max scent and he wasn't. And I 7-1'd him and he's looking at him and I'm looking at no fish. I'm not looking at I'm just dropping when he does. So I know there are fish around. So maybe they were under the boat. Who knows what happened? And that was the episode where I caught a fish that had a bait in his mouth that he lost there like weeks ago, not with a hook in it, just like a chew toy. It was freaking me out, man.
I'm so fascinated, man, because I've gotten my butt kicked. Like, dude, I'm telling you, there was 100 fish school, if not more. Like, one of the biggest fish schools I've ever seen, right?
Yep.
And they were pretty pressured.
Yep.
I cast in, and I know they're there. I'm looking at them on live scope.
Yeah, right.
I cast in with my favorite drop shot that's not max scent, has really no scent.
Yep.
Don't get bit. I have this kid in my boat, and I just hooked up a flatworm just for fun. First casts in, hooks one, catches it.
That's so crazy.
Nothing. He casts back in, next cast, hooks it, catches it. And I'm like, what? Like I don't get it.
It blows me away. I was up at Deep Creek Lake in Western Maryland. This is no bullshit. We're fishing a Wednesday night derby. We got our asses beat by the old guy, and we raced him to the row of docks we wanted to fish. He won because he was a boat ahead of us. He threw a dead stick, the trick worm, threw it on a Zebco 303. A Zebco 303 push button and beat everybody. Weighed in 15 and change. The next nearest bag was like 9. So we're out of this derby. We had a couple small largemouth. We go up to the dam. There's a ton of smallmouth up there looking at the 360. No live scope, but you can see some fish and you see the cover. I'm throwing my favorite drop shot bait, and we're in a buddy's boat who was fishing the NPFL, came in 7th last year. Anyway, he's got some max scent flatworms. So Justin goes, I'm opening his pack. I don't care.
Yeah.
First cast, smallmouth. Second cast, smallmouth. Third cast, smallmouth. I'm like, that's ridiculous. You're giving me one now. First cast for me, smallmouth. And it was nothing to write home about, but it was just that fast. That's crazy to me because it's not like I casted right on top of the smallmouth. It's not like we casted into a Great Lakes school of fish. It's hard to catch them up there.
Yeah.
Is the max scent going in the water and making some sonic sound we don't know about? Like I liken it to like pop rocks. Is it going kick, and they can like sense it with their lateral line? What's going on with that bait, man? That's crazy.
I know.
Does it matter
the scent that freaking fast?
Does it matter the size?
10 feet away? I don't get it.
It's gotta be, dude, because that's what they say it is.
Something else that's going on, man.
That flat, I'll tell you what, that flatworm or the flatworm is larger. But I will tell you this: before I went up last summer up to Door County, my buddy says, "Murph, you gotta stop and find every flat nose minnow that you can." So there I am buying flat nose minnows up, and I go up there, 2 of my 3 boys, and we didn't put it on at first, and then I'm watching my buddy ton them, and I'm like, this cannot be possible. And as soon as we put them on, bam, 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 and that bait's really little. That flat nose minnow is a small little bait, but I will tell you what, I instantly saw the light change. It went from yellow to green.
It's crazy. I mean, for me, Ben, I was fishing Travis's open water sniper jig, and he's throwing the old Ned, Z-Man, yoga pants, and I didn't put the jig down, and I'm catching, and I caught several, and the big fish of the trip, a 6'2", because I put a Berkeley max scent flat nose worm on the jig and not the preferred beaver trailer, which is not, they don't make a mini beaver in max scent, and there were none on the boats. And I'm like, looked at the bottom boat, saw a beat up max scent worm, bit it down, threaded on the jig, pow, 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 and caught a 6'2".
That's amazing.
Crazy.
It like the whole conversation. I know we're
snapping it out of grass.
No, that's okay, because this is all about everything.
And it's unbelievable. Like, this isn't a knock on do it. I poured my wave worms, and this is when there were no flatworms in the world.
Yeah.
And I tried to get those things to scent and like be perfect. You could throw a wave worm next to a flatworm and they're like identical. It's different.
It's crazy.
I don't believe it. I can't believe it.
So for anyone out there, so what Ben's talking about, the wave worm mold from Do It Molds is it's profile. It's like literally identical to the same style as that flatworm. The difference is it's the max scent, right?
Can you grind up your old flats? Here's a question: has anybody tried to melt down used max scent? Dang,
it does not work, Ben.
No, it turns into like a mush.
Oh, so clearly you've tried it.
I was so determined. Brennan came up here, so I had tried it before Brennan from Do It came up here, and it was like a mush. It was like a goop. So I just figured I did something wrong, and I'm like, Brennan, how do I get this material to just melt it back down and pour it into the wave worm? He was like, you can't. Yeah. He's like, I tried everything.
Enterprising anglers want to know. But I mean, I'll go back to when Berkeley Power Bait first came out, fishing on the Potomac with a guide. I'd never been on the Potomac, had a 16-foot tracker, tin boat, wanted to learn the river so I didn't lose my lower unit. His name was Glenn Peacock. We go to, I won't say where, pre-spawn spot. I had a package of red shad power bait. He didn't have any. And I started fishing it, and it was unbelievable. And I gave him some, and he goes, son, he goes, all I can tell you is this. I'm writing about this in the Washington Post tomorrow. You better go to Kmart and buy every single pack. And I'm like, no question about it. I just grabbed the rack, man. It was like they'd never tasted it, and they held on to it like nothing else. It was crazy. So I don't know, man. Something to it, man, for sure.
Ben, do you see that question I highlighted here from Brian Kolzak? I know there's two different style molds from Do It. One's a little thinner profile, one's a little bulkier, probably like the Wolf River. I don't know. That's what I call them, the Wolf River blade baits. But do you know which one it is?
I think it's the ZV5. So it's the skinnier one. It's the narrower one. But if you look up like Do It ZV5, it's the 3/8 to 5/8 ounce model, or 3/4 model. Maybe it goes all the way up to 3/4.
So here's a question for you. If Marabou are doing good on, like, your swim jig, you're using that little small one to lay it on the bottom. Why isn't anybody tying like 1/2 ounce Marabous to throw and chuck and drag? Or are they?
There are people.
No, I am. So
okay,
that is.
He's right here. I know another guy too, but it's not me.
I didn't figure it out. My buddy Dirds, we were up north, and Dirds smokes, and this is actually critical to the story. So Dirds smokes. We were up north, and the day prior, I gave him 3 32nd ounce hair jig. Tied terrible. Like maybe there were a couple feathers left in this thing, but it wasn't good.
Who cares, right?
He casts it out, super, super clear water. It's a fall, really, really cold.
Yep.
He sits down on the bottom of the boat, smoke, can't get his lighter lit, can't get it lit. His bait's probably sitting there a minute and a half now. The fish came over 30 foot of water, bit his hair jig, 5.5 pounder.
That's so crazy.
And I'm like, oh, yeah, okay. Like, that's one of those things, just luck.
Yeah, lucky.
I'm drop shotting on these fish because we're deep. He casts out again, sinks to the bottom, doesn't even make the bottom, 5.5 pounder. He's got 2 5.5s, have nothing. So we're fishing. He ends up catching like 25 pounds by himself. I got 0.
On a nasty burnout black Marabou that you gave him that was like no good.
Mm-hmm. And the way he had to fish it, it just sat there. Like it had to just sit there.
That's what I'm saying.
And do nothing. And then he just pull it. And then eventually they'd eat it.
So the other thing that happens too.
That's so crazy. Did you have a piece of max scent on there for him?
He had a little piece on there.
A little piece.
But let's be truthful. It's sitting there like Marabou when you do nothing to it is doing a lot. It's a lot. You can't beat it. right?
It's always max scent on the back of a hair jig.
So
Yeah.
I'm not. So
I mean, that's a fascinating story. Wow, that's just anecdotal and that's powerful.
deep
But, like,
water
it's-
Great Lakes, Eric. Deep
Yeah.
water Great Lakes. I have a buddy that throws 5/16 and 3/8, and once in a while half.
Okay.
And he ties two types of jigs, and one is, and he throws these on reefs on the Great Lakes
Yeah.
in deep water, 20 plus all the way up to 40 feet of water. And he usually ties marabou, but he also will tie them in craft fur. So, and he differentiates between the use between the two is that if he is letting it sit longer, he uses the marabou.
Sure.
And if he's moving it, he'll use the craft fur. In theory, you're going to get it condensed a little bit more if you're retrieving and moving it along. Here's the other thing you have to keep in mind. So why? So like as we talk about like flow, color, design, why do we make things the way we do? And my buddy used to tell me, he'd say, he goes, there is current, he says, along these reefs when you have depth changes. And that's
Sure.
something that everyone doesn't talk about. Like people say, yeah, focus on depth changes or contours or whatever it is. But now you have an element when if you're sitting there with a big wind day, depending on where it's coming off land, it's changing the entire current system along the waterways, right?
Yeah.
And so that creates current, and maybe it's not current that I would know when I'm wading a river, right? But it changes the sway of the current in the water. And I think that on marabou, it's like dinner bell, dinner bell, dinner bell. And I think guys key into this on certain places, and I think it becomes a lights out thing that no one else is doing all the time.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes it exciting.
Other crazy thing, Small Jaw posted a video. I think it was Small Jaw posted an underwater video of a bunch of different types of materials, and he posted one with hair jig and marabou and just a fish tank, right? And so there's no movement. He's not touching the line, but that hair, that marabou, literally just lives and breathes. And like as one piece will sway one way, like everything just breathes, even with no current, with nothing. Like it just wants to move and live. And so I think that's another big thing too, is especially in cold water, like it just has just enough movement that when it's dragged on bottom, they smash it.
Yeah. Interesting. Food for thought.
It's hard to
I think
get
that's
away
why it
from
works so
marabou.
good on it. Like I think that's why it works so well anytime that it's set. Like I think that's why your drop shot will work so good. Like,
have you ever thrown a chatterbait with like marabou and then maybe a little Magnum zonker?
No,
I don't want to say, but
hold on, let me make you big.
there's a little chatterbait that has a clear blade, the original, and I take the skirt off, and then what I would do is I would palmer, some type of hair, right? Because it's not as important, but I wanted puffy, and then I throw a big zonker on the back, and then I make it really flashy. But the flow of that, like you think about a leech, there is no silicone that can mimic the look of that. And I'm dying to go up and drag this deep for some big giant smallies with hair. I think they would absolutely kill it. So I used a small chatterbait called a shaky chatter jig. It's by Garage Craft. It's a JDM bait. And that was the other big fish with Travis. I've had big fish multiple times with Travis up there. And I was with Will from Gajo and dragging that thing along. I didn't put any hair on it, but it was such a small profile chatterbait. I mean, maybe the new, Mini Max would be no, this is even smaller. The blade's way smaller, but it's a sneaky bait. But I can't even imagine that with hair on. I could take the skirt off of that and tie hair onto it with a small little rabbit strip, and it would just look sick.
Yeah.
I just think they would just absolutely destroy it. Because it's vibrating. You got that, it's imparting flow. So the design in my brain, I'm just thinking about ways to apply marabou and then rabbit, like zonker. Marabou and zonker combined would just be devastating.
I'm like so intrigued by the different types of hair, right? Because I've never really explored outside of marabou.
Yeah.
So like You have bear, you have rabbit, you have deer or buck.
Don't forget about polar bear hair, which is the only translucent hair.
Wait, is that real?
Swear to God, you
It
can't
is
get.
real.
Well, I think
Yeah.
you can, and I think it floats because it's hollow. So you got this buoyancy to it. You've got this translucency to it, and it really is pretty spectacular. I tied some bonefish flies with it, and I took it down to Andros Islands, and the guides were crying laughing because I was so. They're like, "You throw that polar bear hair fly?" I'm like, "You sure right? I am." Anyway, so that's beside. But there's polar bear, but you have to be licensed to actually sell it. I don't know if you can even buy it anymore. But I bought licensed polar bear hair because that's how kooky I was when I was tying flies for trout and saltwater fish like bonefish. So
now Arctic
so
Fox. Arctic Fox is another one. And,
oh my gosh, I'm in love with that.
Arctic
That's
Fox,
like really flowy. Isn't it even more flowy than Marabou?
There's a lot of people that say it, and the thing is, it has.
But you can't get it long. You can't get it long enough, in my experience.
It is not. You cannot get it crazy long. Once in a while, you get a good section and piece of it, right? But I will tell you this:
are you getting the tail section or the hide section? I feel bad about the Arctic Fox when I talk.
It is all.
Sorry, bro.
It is all on a hide piece, similar to a zonker strip, right?
Did they not sell the tails because the hair on the body is different than the tail on?
I don't know, Adam. Where's SDG? He's in chat. So all I know is every Arctic Fox tail hair, it all comes on like a just like a zonker strip. There's another material that I personally think is really awesome is raccoon zonker strips, which is really, really, really cool. And you could do some cool stuff with.
Man, they are cute though. Damn, I feel bad.
I'm sorry. Did you just say they're cute?
You're crazy, dude.
They're cute.
I'm watching all these raccoon videos on Instagram. You got me thinking about that. Maybe they died naturally and they donated to the cause.
Yeah, probably. God. Probably they ate something bad out of the trash or something, and you just grab them all back, cut the tail off, and sell
That's right.
That's why it's all senior moments. The only raccoons we use are senior moment raccoons.
Yeah, cheers, man. Cheers.
It is hard to get away. Yeah, look at so Brian Test just said Brian's up in Wisco and he is tremendously knowledgeable. You need to make sure you get the Arctic Fox tail. So Brian, that's an important distinction. So there's a difference between the Arctic Fox fur and then Arctic Fox tail.
Yeah, because I've been buying the thank you T Trippy Sticks jigs. I've been buying the little poof balls. And, for fly tying, sure. But if I'm trying to tie a bigger jig, I was in love with it, but I'm going, damn, I'm cutting it off going, it's just not long enough for what I wanted to do with it. But it's beautiful material.
Anyway. And there's nothing wrong with
live and learn.
There's nothing wrong with playing around with some synthetics too, right?
Yeah.
There's so much out there. And I think that's the cool thing about all this. Fit and function of a Marabou jig. I'll tell you what, the Marabou jig actually I did really well with. I would go, I don't know what it is. I have 2 packs. I have a green pumpkin and a smoke with purple flake of the smallest size Bass Pro Shop Stickos. And they come like 25 in a pack in this little plastic thing. And I cut off little sections and I put them on the back of Marabou jigs and I take my kids to the ponds and they cast out the Marabou jigs with that little section on the back. And it's a lights out little lure and bait. And just the profile is completely different. So
I mean, think about a crappie jig and how many freaking crappie and bass when you're fishing for crappie. I'm liking the sculpin wool, man. That sculpin wool's got some little kinky fibers to it. I feel like it's like really supernatural and the bends in it. That's like a little snack size morsel right there. I think I can tie something good with it, but I don't, it's certainly not as flowy as Marabou, but that might make a good hair jig.
Eric, in chat, I'm going to highlight one of my buddies here. So Trippy Sticks makes some, they make some bass stuff too, but the reason I love Trippy Sticks is because they make some crazy cool, I guess I'm going to call them crappie jigs.
Yeah.
But the deal is with the jigs that these crappie guys make, this new age, I call them the new age crappie guys. They have this chenille that they are using from these different companies. I started to do some research and these guys make some killer small profile things that I think have a fit and function for smallmouth fishing that I think are just amazing. And so if you Trippy Sticks, would you do me a favor, bro? Throw your Instagram handle in chat, because if you go back on the Jig Squad Instagram page, you'll see that I've reposted some of Trippy Sticks stuff.
Okay.
And there's a couple of crappie guys on there, but I just know Trippy Sticks is in here. So just phenomenal stuff. And I really think that we can learn a lot from that really small down profile of their wrapping basically the body of jigs with the chenille. But I think, if I'm not mistaken, Trippy Stick's going to be working on some smallmouth. Tell me if I'm wrong, buddy. Smallmouth things with the same type of fit and function behind the design that he's going to use. Oh, I got something else for everyone in chat, and of course the guys on screen here. So I'm at work, and if my buddy Pat is watching, I have to bring up what Pat told me. So when I was showing him a couple of different logo designs for future merchandise and stuff like that, I was showing him some logos, and I can't even believe I'm saying this, Eric, but I have to tell you. You know, hold on. I'm going to make myself for a second.
What are you saying? No, you may be big. Stop it.
I know. Pat, you're out there. I know it. And if not, you're going to watch on replay. And I got to tell these boys, I got to tell Ben and Eric this, and I got to be truthful. My buddy Pat told me that instead of flow, color, design, it should be color, flow, and design. He's not a fisherman. He didn't hear any of our past conversations. He just said it looks better and it just kind of fits better. The color should be first.
Not design.
I almost fell over.
Color.
I said
design, color, flow. That's
you know sure. Eric. Somehow, some way, you know Eric. I was convinced of it, but he says color should be first. I almost freaking fell over. Well, I go. I do. I agree. I like color more.
We've interviewed everybody. We had this conversation on the first show.
Let's talk to Ben.
When you're approaching a jig, whether it's your skip the Marabou because that's the one you've tied the most. But if you've got this idea for a jig, what are you thinking about first in those three things, and in what order?
Probably color first, but my color. So this is where I'm super weird, right? Because like everyone that makes baits, or a lot of guys that make baits, try to make them to look really nice and whatever. Like they want it to look really cool. Dude, I'm not. Like I don't care how it looks. I don't care if it's ugly. It's all about catching them. Right?
That's the guide mentality. I went on a trout trip out to Colorado, and the dude opened his fly box. He's a guide. He does it for a living. And I'm like, those are the ugliest flies I've ever seen. He goes, dude, they catch them. I don't care what they look like. I care if they catch them. And I'm like, dang, there I am at my little vise, and I'm making sure it's perfectly symmetrical. He goes, no, man, the uglier, the better. And what I noticed I tied like this rainbow print snip. He gave me the material, colorway. I brought it back home. I got a hook that I loved. I put my beads on. And the thing that I noticed is the more they ate it, the better it fished, the buggier it got. It wasn't symmetrical. It was all funky, but it trapped more air. It just did the job. And it's kind of like when you hear from people that throw jigs, the more ratty it gets, the more material gets pulled off. Your crappy Marabou jig you gave that guy that caught 25 pounds. Yeah. There's a lesson here, and I don't know what it is. Make your jigs look shitty from the start.
See, like I'm so fascinated by these beautiful baits, right? Like just gorgeous.
Me too.
They're lovely.
All these baits,
they're lovely.
I didn't tie that to look crappy. I made it to look pretty, but I wanted to catch them. And I'm Let me just start tearing this thing apart. I mean, I don't know, right?
I'm like, if I could have the skill to make things look great, I would. But like, I just don't care, right? Like, I just want to get it on the water and fish it. But where I really started to notice is I bought all these beautiful jigs and like magic craw jigs that had eyes and And then I went in the boat with an old timer, and dude's got a half-ounce aspirin. Like it's a weird like local brand. It's a half-ounce jig. Doesn't look like anything. The head's disgusting.
Yeah,
it's flat rubber with some copper flash. He's beat that thing on 48 docks, and he's smoking them. And my beautiful jig is just not catching them. Now I'm like, I don't care. Like if it's not beat off 10 docks, like it's not going to catch a fish. Like I got to hit 14 pontoons and 10 dock pulls before it catches one.
Ben, that's a great comment. So I'm going to. Eric's maybe heard this, but I don't know if everyone else hasn't, because this is like a new deal that we're doing, right? So this past summer, my family went down to Florida, and before going down to Florida, it was kind of it was right before there was a release of some colors by Do It Molds that, we kind of had our hands on, Ben, ahead of time, and I had some cool jigs made up, and I was making stuff for Florida too, but yet they weren't released yet. So like we were on the down low, right? So we didn't have these things out yet. And I decided I'm going to Florida, right? So I'm fishing for snook off the beach. I'm fishing in Sarasota Bay. I am going premium, right? So my historical fit and function for fishing was the days when I go jump in the Kinky River and wade. And if they weren't a plain ball head jig, I would paint them up in 3 colors: green pumpkin, white, and black. Those are the 3 jig head colors I would use, right? Then I incorporated chartreuse in. But anyway, I decide that I'm going to make this monster load of jigs to cover all my needs when I go down to Florida. I got 4 Agamis in there on the freestyle jig mold head, right? And you know where I'm going with this already. I have to put eyes on these suckers, and then I have to clear coat them. And I am up for like 2 weeks every single night. The jigs are all poured. There's like 200 jigs poured. And so what am I doing? I'm up every night. I'm painting them. I'm putting eyes on them, which I don't like this put eyes on them because it's a lot of work. I need eye work myself. So I'm putting these eyes on, then I'm clear coating them with Sally Hansen's. I'm coating them. Next thing you know, it's like 2 weeks in a row that I'm up until like 1, 2 in the morning every single night making jigs. But I will tell you something. I don't do that for myself if I'm going out throwing plastics. But I'll tell you what, when I get down to Florida, I threw those jigs. And you know what? I caught snook. I caught mangrove snapper. I caught speckled trout. I landed.
Everybody's eating.
I landed my first tarpon on a 1/4 ounce freestyle jig with a 4 Agami on the back end.
That's amazing.
And I will tell you what,
Cuda.
So the reason I'm saying this is that as much as I love simple when it comes to jig function, there are times where we do and design for our own experience and what we love.
Sure. Hell yeah.
And if I'm putting hair on the back of something, or if I'm putting skirted material, right, I like to jazz it up a little bit. The only exception would be a Marabou jig. I really don't put eyes on a Marabou jig.
I love eyes so much. I put them on my damn keyboard. Hold on. Where are they? There they go. Don't tell me I don't believe in eyes.
Oh, that's so funny.
Oh, God.
You look, man, it is true. And I think, Kuda, you said it best. We design color flow for our own experience.
Yeah.
And Ben's experience is, as a guy who spends how many days a year on the water?
Yeah, decent few.
A few. You guide,
just
you
a
tournament
few.
fish, you are a content creator, and there's not a lot of content if you're not catching. So I really love hearing the guides experience and the hardcore fisherman experience. And I really do think there's something that when a jig gets beat up, it just fishes better. Now, maybe with the Marabou, you lose that flow, so you wouldn't want to be throwing, if you're vertically swimming it, one that has no little, little tail kick, right? But maybe if it's sitting on the bottom, the more beat up, the better. I don't know, man. I've just heard the story too many times. And the crankbait that gets the shit kicked out of it is catching fish like crazy, right? I mean, like this old Norman that I retired, man. It's caught him, dude. I mean, look at that thing, man. Look at that thing. It's just all faded out, chewed up, man. It's all bone. I mean, there's hardly any orange left on there, man. My gummies are I can't throw anymore. I don't want to lose it. Listen, man, that's the sound of money. Eric, but why do we paint them pretty when that probably catches them better?
Let's tell the chat. Okay, so there's 2
that
ways.
Means I suck because I'm always like going on to the next new crankbait.
For the people that are crazy about this. For the people that are crazy about this, Eric, there's 2 different ways, right? I already know what yours is. If you have a beat up crankbait, which in most instances, I don't think you're doctoring up, but if you wanted to doctor it up and fix it, some people don't want to fish jigs or crankbaits after they get dinged up, which I don't understand. If you wanted to fix up your crankbait or a jig, what would you do?
Well, I mean, I showed you. I mean, let's say you just wanted to add some material. So there's some,
Just add it.
I'll give a little tip up. This is how many people are watching? 45. Okay.
Replay value, Eric. You're adding to the replay value.
There's a silicone that acts like round rubber. I won't tell you what it is. Let's see if anybody can guess. I'll hold it up.
I won't.
This is silicone, and it acts like round rubber. It is the springiest that I know. It does not act like flat silicone. That is springy and floaty and got a lot of movement. So, I mean, let's say they ate all the orange out of my jig and I wanted to throw the 2 strands in. I mean, that's what I would do. I'd use my little freaking bait needle or my little dental floss threaders and throw a strand in there and, get it right.
If it's, let's say it's a skirted jig, you guys. So if you've got
can't do it on a hand tied. Can't do it on a hand tied. It's got to be a rubber collar. But that's the way to breathe some new life into your jig. That if you want to throw a little bit of crystal flash in, or flashaboo, or midge flash, or whatever you want to throw in there. I mean, that's what you could do. You could even probably get some freaking feather in there.
If you have to, you have 2 other options too, right?
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, there are some people out there that will tell you about. I'm just gonna say it. So there's some anglers out there that will tell you for like smallmouth that chartreuse is this hotspot color, right? And it triggers fish. And I'm going to leave that as a general statement. I'm not going to expand on that because you have your own things that work for you. But guys,
no, I got Ben Nowak on the stream. I'm asking him, is chartreuse the hotspot color?
I just think they can see it from forever away. I don't even think
I didn't want to pimp anyone and have you have to say it. So if you're saying it, then go ahead and say it.
I'm pimping him. He cannot answer if he doesn't want to. He can plead the fifth.
I think it's the coolest thing, and I didn't really notice it to live scope. And if I cast a bait out, let's say I cast this black hair jig out in moderately clear water, okay? That bait hits the water. These fish are so smart. Like, they know when things are in the water, they'll immediately come up. I mean, just the second it hits water, right? But the second you add color, second you add chartreuse, or you add white, or you add whatever it might be, and all those fish are infinitely more curious. They can just see it from further away.
Wow.
And, like, that to me is the big thing. I don't think it looks any more natural. It may actually catch you less fish, right? But, like, when they're actively, aggressively coming up to eat, that chartreuse is going to get you more bites.
Think about chartreuse spinnerbait for smallmouth.
Burning it, sure.
I mean,
it's just all about sight. I don't even think you could throw it in the cleanest water in the world. It's just about them, like, being curious to look at it. But I don't think it'll get you necessarily way more bites unless they're in that mood where, like, they are aggressive to come up to it. The black and the chartreuse they're both gonna be equally intrusive when they enter the water. Fish are gonna know they're there, but the chartreuse is gonna draw them further. It's like a big glide bait, right? Like a big glide bait and a jerk bait. Okay,
that's a good comment.
So, like, the jerk bait, you can cast it out there, and they might come, what? Let's say 8 feet for a jerk bait. Well, that big glide bait hits, makes more noise. It's a bigger profile. They'll come all the way out of, literally, dude. I've seen them come out of 20 foot of water, come all the way up to that big glide just to look at what it is. And so, just having, like, this curiosity factor, I don't necessarily know that it's going to put more fish in the boat. Many times it won't. But when they're in the mood, it makes a difference.
Right.
That's a great point. And you're talking about it with using graphing or live scope as your experience as to how you've seen that, right?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, here's the thing. I don't always employ the use of putting chartreuse jigs on, but the one thing I'm going to try next year, frankly, and I do use them sometimes, right, with specificity. But what I did is I got some of those paint markers, and I'm going to use some of those paint markers next year for when I want to do something different. Eric, it would be the same as Eric taking like a chartreuse colored nail polish. Yes. And
I just happen to have some on my desk. Imagine that.
And just dab will do you. And there you go. And
seriously, you could put a fluorescent orange dot, on the bottom of your black jig head or a chartreuse. So you'd have predominantly black, but like a, chartreuse, like little mark. I mean, you can do so much, man. Oh, it's so crazy.
I think a lot of times as anglers, we keep employing the same techniques and the same things that we think should work in a given situation and wait for the bite rather than us taking the initiative to potentially create the bite by making some of these adaptations. And I really think that we have to include color in part of that discussion, right?
For sure.
Whether we say they could see color or not, or whether it's shades and variants of or contrast, I really think that's a phenomenal thing for us to experiment with. I will tell you this. I know that you put a tube in my hand. Ben, you talked last year. You said you used a tube more. Man, I'm telling you, the guys that taught me how to fish Great Lakes smallmouth, the first thing they did was they said, you got 2 baits to use today, and that's it. One was a tube, and the other was a grub. And that's how I learned how to fish smallmouth on the Great Lakes.
Wow. So, what color tube and what color grub? Do tell, Scooter. Now, if you be
tube and grub colors,
if you be breaking a code of silence, feel free not to plead the fifth. It's okay. On Jig Squad, we don't force anybody to answer questions they don't want to.
You know, when I look into the camera like that with my eye, right? I'm telling the truth.
Hold on.
There are some.
I'm gonna watch really closely.
There are some unique colors that are, of course, like that you'll throw into the mix. But I hate to disappoint everyone, but a green pumpkin tube, nothing beats it. And I'll tell you,
green pumpkin, black flake. That's it. Nothing. No
green pumpkin, black flake. More than anything else. Now there are variants, right, with purple flake and stuff like that. I love,
right. Mm-hmm.
But I'll tell you what, for when it comes to grubs,
does anybody throw them anymore? Does anybody throw a grub anymore for smallmouth?
I love it. I can't get enough. And I'll tell you the one I like.
What color was the grub? Was it green pumpkin too back then?
Green pumpkin, bro.
Damn.
It is green pumpkin again, dude, but
black flake like literally looks so dumb, but it's like it doesn't matter, dirty water, clean water, anything. Smoked black flake.
Kalen's is a banger, and like Andrew who's a guide up in Travis had him on the show. Yeah. Andrew Ragas is a guy. Listen, I'm going to tell you about this. I'll get back to him. My ADHD kicks in.
Hey, we still haven't asked Ben what's the order of the next. He only said
that's
color.
Coming next.
Okay, we got to land the plane, man. This show is all over the map.
Let me tell my grubs, and then we're going back to flow color design. Excuse me, color flow design with Ben. My number one grub, and I've said it before, is a Fat Albert grub.
Ooh,
I love it. The profile, the length of it is fantastic. I don't even know. I don't even know if they build it as a 3-inch grub or a 4-inch grub. It's a 4-inch grub, is what it looks like. It's the perfect profile. It's the perfect size. They have some phenomenal colors: June bug, green pumpkin, and a lot of other dynamo. It's just a great grub, and I love it. And if I'm to be honest with you, if I had a number one bait, if I was sight fishing, what I would use over anything would be a white Zoom Fat Albert grub. It's actually white pearl.
Wow. Interesting.
So my eyes are getting bad, right? So I can't see as much anymore. I'm good to about 10, 12 feet. After that, I'm a wreck. I need all the assists I can get. All right. So
I couldn't see a bed in like clear water, so you're good.
All right, so let's bring this back. So Eric, take us out in this because you were the ones bringing us back. So let's
all right, man. All right, so it was color first. Then is it flow or design next?
When we say flow, are we basically talking like action in the water?
Mm-hmm. I would say so.
You tell us. What does it mean to you?
Oh,
better.
That's a good one. I would say color, and then I would say design.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Design is going design for me is going to impact the action of the bait, right? So like,
agreed.
If I have a very specific jig that I pour that I like, right? Because it does certain things in the water that I want the jig to do. So the design of it, whether it's the hook, whether it's the head, whether it's the way the skirt's put on there, that's super important to me. And then flow, like action, right? I think there's a million baits on the market that have similar actions, but if the design's not right, the hook's not right, the head's not right, the skirt's not right, it's going to impact your ability to put fish in the boat or put the bait where you need it to go. So
that's a great way of describing it, because what's funny is like, so as we talk to people about this, and I put the flow first, right? And I say this for all the reasons that you just described. All those things lead to the flow, right? So like my end result when I pick except maybe color, right? My end, but sometimes color, because
Yeah, but even
color can have
color
flow
can
too.
impact. Yeah, color can impact. I mean, the whole profile of the bait too.
True.
Yeah. And
True.
it's so phenomenal to talk to people about these things. And this would be a good chance too, because one of my major hopes with the Jig Squad stuff, you guys, is that I think that a lot of times as jig designers, we don't always maybe we don't verbalize why we design things the way we do, or we don't talk to other people about why we do things the way we do. But the more we create a community where we're able to have these conversations and then actually forcing ourselves to describe why we're doing things, it's going to make us better designers for fit and function for what we're trying to accomplish, and for intent. And I think that's a big thing. Like, what are we trying to accomplish? What are we trying to make our bait do? And
Right.
and does it
Can-
accomplish that or not? Right.
I'm
Yep.
gonna pull up a material, and it keeps going.
What
What
is
it
that?
exactly? Let's get the magnifier on it and see if anybody can
Let's
identify
hold
this,
on.
because
Let me.
I'm dying to know what people think about this.
What's in the lab, dear Watson? Can we have
All
this as a
right.
section? What's in the lab, dear Watson?
Oh, you guys will be able to know this. Like, now you can really see. Look how much light that's throwing. What is that?
Is that
And
flash? What is that?
SDG will know what this is, because we talked about it on a show
I
prior.
know
He
what
said
it is too.
he didn't like to use it because he couldn't get it long enough, but this has solved the problem.
Starts with a LU.
Oh,
Uh-huh.
it's yeah.
This is Lumaflex. So what inspired me to, I have some, and then I got some more.
They used to put that in old school spinnerbaits, didn't they?
They did, man. They
Yes.
did. They did. So the light refracting properties of this are amazing, and the flow of this is out of this world.
Eric,
But you
do
could
you have-
only buy it short in skirts in the past. I don't remember if anybody could get it in hanks. Clearly, the manufacturers that were making Lumaflex could get it in longer to make skirts, but you couldn't really tie custom with it. But now that you got this long hank in a bunch of different colors, you can mix it with anything, really. But
So is it like
I want to
so
try to tie a swim jig with it, or like,
is it,
yeah, go ahead.
Is it softer than flash? Like, does it move better than flash?
I would say this is so crazy limp, man. This is like super limp.
That's
Like,
cool.
look at it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I don't know, man. What do you guys think? Would it be a killer on a swim jig, or would it have too much too much flow? I don't know. Like, I would reverse it, right? I would tie it forward, right? And see how it lays along, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe mix in some silicone accent colors or living rubber. I don't know, man, but I'm dying to try it because it's got this luminescence to it. It's very unique material. I just
what are
don't
your
know.
thoughts on flash, right? Like, what are your thoughts on Flashaboo? Do you put it in all your baits? Do you put it in your dirty water colors? Do you put it in clear water?
I believe in it, man. I'm a real, like, I just took a Z-Man, football head, and I just tied a little material on the front to make it an open water jig. Like, it's already beat up, right? It's only got like, I literally tied 10 strands in, but that little bit of flash to me, because the inspiration to put that flash in it came from my little shaky jig worm that I tie, and I'm just in love with it because it's caught me some really big largemouth, and that's just beat up from the beginning, right? That's like off the vise. And this has been a great cold water bait for me, man. I've caught several fives on it. I generally like a flat bottom worm on it. I tie it in purple and black, but my black and blue. But I like this little old school worm that you can't find anymore. It's uber, like, it just sits there, and it's just that round material is just kind of flowing, and the crystal flash is giving a little glint. I'm not popping. I'm talking about, I've only fished this in November and December, back-to-back years, and both times I've had it out, I've caught 5s and 4s and 3s on it. So
That's awesome.
and 2s and 1s. I mean, but a lot of bites. It's been a moneymaker for me. So,
Eric, I ran out for a minute, but Brian Schmidt's saying that he uses that a lot, and I'm assuming, Brian, that's the Lumaflex. So
Lumaflex.
Interesting
That's
enough,
correct.
Brian Schmidt from Brian Schmidt Custom Baits will be in the house next week on Jigsquad
I can't
Live.
wait. I can't wait to hear his thoughts on it direct. Thanks, Brian. I mean, I'm stoked. It caught my eye. I had some stuff laying around, but it was banded, and I just it wasn't long enough to do anything with. Yeah, and I mean, I used to throw it on buzz baits and stuff when I'd get it on lures. But I saw an Instagram thing with a swim jig. TK Stanley and I were talking about it, TK from Tacklecraft, and it clearly they showed it in slow motion, but it was like, oh my, it was hypnotic. Like this thing was just going, hoo, 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 hoo. I mean, they taught it long and flowy. I don't know, man.
That's so cool.
I can't wait to try it.
What are your thoughts on eyes on baits?
What is that? Oh, eyes. Oh, I've done it, man. I've done it. I got these little it's an Arky style jig head. Where the hell is it? I just had it out the other day. It's made by Gamakatsu. They make a Arky style, but like on my swim jigs, I'm a big fan of big oversized eyes, man. I you know, when I make a bait like a crankbait, I don't know, man. I'm a big oversized eye. I mean, like I put a giant red eye on that bait. You know, I took that bait out. I was testing the old skunk pattern, a little modified with some blue and black and white with a crackleback. But I just like it. It makes me feel sexy. Big swim jig eyes, you know, oversized.
What do you think, Ben?
Swim jig. I don't know.
I'm a huge believer in moving. Like, you know what's funny is like I'll fish the ugliest jig you can possibly find, but like if I'm fishing a swim jig and it doesn't have eyes, like cut it off, put a different swim jig on. Like,
really,
I need some yellow eyes. I need some big, bright, nasty yellow eyes on the June bug swim jig or whatever color swim jig. Because
I agree, man.
I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's like a target. I don't know what it is, but like
I think it might be a target, man. Like this Demiki Kaiser head. If you can see it,
oh, that's cool.
Yes.
That thing, it's got that prismatic eye. And I mean, you think about me doing the inchy wacky technique right now. I've tied some, you know, round rubber on these to make it like a jig inchy wacky to give it a little bit more profile. So you could tie anything you want on the collar of this. I showed that the other day. I did it on actually a Kuda saw it. It's this deal right here. And I put big old red eyes on it. It might have come with the red eyes, but that's just
ginormo eyes.
That's a Clouser minnow with like a BS Gamakatsu silver. And, you know, of course, I'm going to put a little crystal on there, right? And then I'm going to, you know, put a little Senko 4-inch, and I'm going to throw that on a bed. And I think a smallmouth's going to run over there and crack it because he's going to see the eye, or I'm going to be doing inchy wacky, and they're going to see those red eyes because, you know, as I let it float down, I don't know, man. I feel like it's a target. I feel like, here it is. This little deal. That little dude, man, you know, it's open hook and threw a grub on it, and wintertime just sitting there shaking it. And, you know, that jig sitting on the bottom with the eyeballs looking up at him. Does it make a difference? I caught a 4.5 that day on a walleye grub.
I'll tell you, I was never like a believer. I was always like, eyes might make a difference. Then I was throwing a blade, and a blade, as you guys know, like does nothing, right? Very little vibration, super slow movement. And what would happen is when I threw one and the eyes got knocked off, they would eat the back hook, or they'd eat it funny, or they'd hit it weird. Well, then you go and I take a Sharpie, literally nothing crazy, Sharpie on a white blade, put some dots on for eyes, and they start eating the front hook and eating it a lot better.
Okay, that's crazy.
And then I'm like, okay, eyes have to be on everything. But I literally just think it's a target spot. I only think it's like, okay, like this is the different portion of that bait. Like this is the deal, right?
Yeah, I don't know. Like I made that little dude, you know, and did a little glow fingernail polish, a little red for a target so they eat the front. Yes. And I've always wanted to try a single inline hook on the back. Bad idea, good idea, sucky idea. Because I throw blades at docks a lot.
No, that's a huge good
my
idea.
Blade fishing is not your blade fishing. So like if I'm on the Potomac or Upper Bay, I'm fishing deep too. Don't get me wrong. But if I'm like in a blade tournament, we're launching in the Northeast at the Naughty Goose, and we're going out of Butchie's, and we're going to start in the no wake zone, and we're going to go to the judges dock. We're going to go to Donzie dock, and I'm throwing it.
Oh, I love Donzie dock.
And I mean, you're like stuck on that shit all the time. But the single hook, would it work?
I've never played with it. Paul
Neither
Mueller plays with it all. Paul Mueller like swears by a single hook. I've never done it.
And both the saltwater
on one.
Just
the saltwater guys throw their top waters with single hooks like that.
Dudes, I saw a Japanese guy use was he using a treble? But he put on his blade bait, I swear, you have to see this. You got to find it on YouTube. I don't know where it is, but he put like minnows. Like it's
I
a
saw it,
Japanese,
dude.
It's a Japanese minnow, and he put 3. So he had to have a treble.
I thought it was
So
a joke. It was a
No!
Megabass.
Did you see that?
Blade. Yeah, and they were like the artificial minnows hanging off the back, and I'm like,
Yeah, and it
"Dude."
looked like a little mini freaking A-rig coming through the water.
Are you
Yeah.
kidding me?
I ain't lying.
I
It's
gotta
the
find
craziest
this
thing you've
video.
ever seen. Like when you're like pumping it, the minnows are going blah, 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 and then it's sitting on the bottom. The minnows float because they're high float
Oh my
plastic.
gosh.
So it's like 6 minnows just doing this on the bottom, and you like shake it. I mean, you'd have to think a smallmouth would go over there and just wear it out,
All right.
like destroy it. It's 6 minnows.
I know you
swimming
just
in the
had your
school
bait.
and then falling to the bottom. What's this got to do with Marabou jigs? I don't know.
It doesn't. Listen, if we just talk about Marabou jigs, we're gonna get bored. Look at what Brian Schmidt just said. We need to listen to this man. Single
What
hooks
man?
is money. Brian Schmidt. I
Oh.
just highlighted the comment. So here's the thing, Eric. You said it, and I think you said it the other night on Travis's show when you were talking about single hooks, right?
All right, here,
The single hook
yes.
allows for more rotation and less likelihood that a fish is going to throw the treble. With the treble, there's more points where the fish's mouth can get leverage against and cause it to rip and tear out. In the single hook, you're going to get more movement possibilities. So that's as it was explained to me. And I only say this because I started to change out some of my 1.5 and 2 ounce poppers that I want to use or I have used on the beach for surf fishing, and they switch a lot of things out to singles. And that's the only reason I threw out what I just said. Have I ever done it on smaller freshwater? No, but philosophically, it's got to be a similar thing.
Yeah.
Trying to find that post, but I'll say a lot of guys up here, like in the walleye world, will literally use minnow heads on their blade baits when they jig them.
Minnow heads. Oh,
yeah,
you're talking about like just a minnow head.
Yeah, they'll get like walleye minnows, pinch the heads off, and then put it on the hooks. They'll do this all the time
with like a bunch of eyeballs on the hook.
A bunch of eyeballs on the hooks. Just the head.
There is something to eyeballs. It's like a walleye. A goggle eye looking at like 8 little eyes, and he's going, I gotta eat that.
Hey, people like eyes.
The eyes have it, man.
I never understood that either, though. Like these walleye guys would be jigging just a slab of metal, right, with a hook, and it's just 3 minnow heads.
That's crazy.
That's dumb.
That's crazy. What is that minnow bait that is Japanese? I could see the packaging. A Flash J minnow. That's it.
Oh, by Flash Arrow.
Flash Arrow minnow. Ken O2 man, it's the Flash minnow, and literally he's just threading it on. He'll show you how to do it, and I don't think it matters what blade bait you use. Honestly, you use 2 treble hooks, and you're putting a minnow on each one of them. I don't know if the fish bites it. There's a lot of plastic. Is it? What's the hook up to catch ratio? I have no clue. But who cares? It looks fucking sexy.
Yeah, it looks
thinking
awesome.
I'm gonna put like a 2-aught on there. Who cares what size hook you got on? It's not like, I mean, he's looking at those minnows, he's gonna eat it. So step up the treble. I wouldn't use a number 6 treble like they come with. I'm gonna like gaff size the trebles like the guys that throw braid with blade baits around docks that are trying to snag fish instead of really get them to eat it. Be that guy, but like you're fishing open water for smallies. Just make sure they got enough hook to like stick them.
Ben, you got to use like a $10 pack of Flash J's, right?
I mean, think about it. You get snagged, you're crying. There goes $10. Like I would use that hook. I'm really liking this hook right now. It's a 6 EWG. It's an owner. It's an STI. It's a little more beefy. But anyway, we're getting off topic.
But go back to that O'Shaughnessy bend. Okay, so like we talk about it in treble hooks too. Everyone's talking about this Gamakatsu Aaron Martin's G Finesse treble.
Love them.
It has those O'Shaughnessy bend hooks
does.
in it.
It does.
Right. Because that hook, that owner's got that O'Shaughnessy style bend, right?
Yeah. Eric, hold that up again. So if for anyone in chat, like if you don't know the difference between O'Shaughnessy, no big deal. Hold on, Eric. I'm gonna pop you. Hold that up with your magnifier. I'm trying to the magnifier is like the 4th wheel right now. I hope
Have
you know
fished
that. We're,
Ichikawa hooks?
No, it's an owner STX45ZN, and it's a 2X. It's a 2X. So there we go.
Look at this. This is excellent, Eric. This is
And it's
great.
look at that little special bend. That's got an extra bend in it. So I guess if I got it right here, and I'm trying, the magnifier's new, everybody, but that's pretty good, right?
It's it's
Yeah,
going
that's good.
well. It
There
is
you go.
nice.
Anyway,
Yeah.
yeah. So there you
So
go.
the cool thing about that is I think Ben just brought that back up. So it basically plays off the same concepts of like that function of the form of an O'Shaughnessy bend, where it's not a true just straight round bend. It's actually angled, which allows that
Right.
fish to get locked up a little bit more.
To get
If
pinned.
you look at like the what do you call them, the KVDs or the Mustad triple grips or whatever the heck you want to call them, it's the same type of style. Victory, the new Victory hooks are accentuated even further.
Right.
Where it's really like you are channeling that hook after it's hooked, it is slotting down into this channeled area where
That's
you're
right.
allowing for less movement. And
That's right.
conceptually, it's hard to argue with that.
Yeah, I agree.
Those are nice hooks, Eric.
Thank you, man. I want to show Ben one more thing. This is fun. This was a total fail. This was tied. I was so excited. I read Mike Iconelli likes to throw this jig in the winter, and it's like when it's super cold, and I'm like, I'm gonna go out in a winter tournament and I'm gonna catch some suspended fish that are in that northeast area. I know they're sitting in 10 foot of water, right? So I cast this jig out, man, and floated on the surface.
Oh, is that the one?
That's bulky.
It is so bulky, man. I feel like getting some scissors out.
You gotta get some lead wire and wrap it, bro.
Gonna, man. I'm telling you, because I'm determined. I'm not letting that thing fail, man. But I mean, I splayed the feathers perfect. I was so proud of my tie.
What weight
You've
do you think that
been
is?
on like a little shad spawn deal?
Yeah,
you just
dude.
throw that thing on top water. Oh my
I
God.
think
wait a second.
right? I mean, it's got a nice little Gamakatsu hook. Yeah,
See,
Gamakatsu.
you gave me an idea for mayflies, Eric.
And this is my crazy chatterbait, man. Look at that thing, dude. Whoa, that thing in the water, man, looked freaking
Hold on.
sexy, dude.
How long is that?
I took that thing sideways. Who cares, man? Because it's totally collapsible, right? But I mean, look at the splay. Look at the splay on that. Was that just ridiculous? It's just stupid.
I like that blue pearlescence coming off of that.
Thank you, man. This is what happens. So in the wintertime, man. Yeah, I just
this
do
is
dumb
what
things
happened.
like this.
No chickens were harmed in the making of this video.
Oh, they were. Yeah. And I palmered some of that special stuff you talked about, Kuda. That you
there
get
you go.
Yeah, you know what that is, right? Yeah,
I love it, dude.
Little Magnum Zonker. I could trim it down a little bit, but man, it's gorgeous, right? I mean, look, man, when I threw my little bunny hair chatterbait, that thing, I retired that because that whipped their ass. I'm telling you.
I think
there's nothing like a Magnum Zonker strip on the back of a chatterbait. So I'm going to tell you, don't need any damn trailer. Forget the plastic. Just take yourself. You got to care for it a little bit differently. But there's nothing like fur and feather on a chatterbait. It's magic in the water. Is all I'm going to say.
So look at this question from Fishing the Southeast. All right. So Fishing the Southeast, I am going to make my best attempt to answer this. And I will tell you, when Brian Schmidt is on next week, he is going to help me out in with a little more specificity. But basically, if you imagine whatever the bird is that you're going to have feathers from, all right?
Yeah.
If you picture, let's just say my hand is feathers. Marabou is basically going to come from the lowest, I think it's on the bottom. It's going to come from the lowest section, the fluffiest hair on the bird. As you go up the large feather of or the wing. Hey, Adam Felder, how'd I do on that? The wing. As you go up the wing of that bird, you're going to start getting into the slopping and then saddle hackle. If you actually buy slopping, if you go to a fly tying store and you buy slopping, at the bottom part of the slopping or slapping, however you say it, the material is actually going to be marabou. So you could technically buy function. Now that works really well if you're tying flies. When you're tying larger bass jigs, you're using a larger amount of material. So you can't really use that dual function. But if you watch like Kelly Gallup from the Slide In and any of his videos, he actually has a great video. Maybe one of these days I'm going to link this on the Instagram page. So Kelly Gallup put out a video where he actually showed the wing of a bird and showed where the material is at
Very cool.
on that wing and how you get dual function out of some of the material pieces. So now listen, I'm going to tell you something. I'm a jig maker. I'm not I can't categorize myself as a fly guy, but I know enough to at least be in the ballpark of how I just described that. So
that's cool, man. No, that's good to understand the anatomy of the bird and where you're getting your parts from, right?
And that'll be good to talk with Brian about next week too. So I mean, I don't know. The cool part is this: there are so many cool materials out there that we could be using. We didn't even talk to Ben about. I have a feeling we're gonna have Ben on the show in the future more times. Because Ben is a good guest.
That'd be awesome.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, Ben is a good guest.
I got a question for anybody out there listening right now. I need a source for chicken feathers. There is nothing better than a chicken feather for tying a feathered treble if you're into tying custom feathered trebles for your topwater.
Really?
It beats schlapping. Let me show you. I'll be right back.
I think the Tesh boys or anyone else, there's some other good people in here that have good access to. Look at Brian's custom tackle.
Need some chicken feathers, man. Chicken. Bill
How do you
Kramer.
get chicken feathers.
I don't even know, man. But
I guess there's got to be thousands.
This is like a cape, man.
Eric, Woods and Waters.
These white feathers from whatever chicken this came from. Now maybe it's not a chicken, but my buddy gave them to me. And I'm telling you, man, I throw a little bit of crystal flash in, of course, when I'm tying them. I like to splay them out like you should, right? And you can tie them long, short, whatever, right? And then I tie one red in there. And I don't have any red chicken feathers, so I get some red schlappen, one little dude of red schlappen.
See, that feather of schlappen is going to be so much bigger, right?
So I want it to be like a bleeding. No, I pick it from
depending,
the
right?
Yeah,
depending on the saddle you get.
I can always find a skinny one on a saddle for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I just picked the skinniest one out because they're all different. At least on the schlappen I'm buying from Bass Pro Shops.
Right.
But anyway, I want some white chicken feather. I mean, I got this much left, man. I can only tie, and I'd love black. If anybody knows anybody dyeing chicken feathers, I need black and white. That's really it. Because then I can get my accent colors from schlappen if I want red or a little bit, make a bluegill style one. Anyway, man.
Yeah, that's bald eagle.
I need some chicken feathers, man.
You need some bald eagle feathers. You want to see action in the water.
No.
Are we in trouble just for saying that?
You are, dude. That's just,
Epidemic Sound is going to flag me for talking about bald eagles.
Don't do it, man.
One of the other things. I am bald, but I do not have any feathers. I got the fish up here, but that's about it. Ben, I think there's also a tremendous value, and I know this is probably I would almost like to do another show with you in time with this, but you also throw silicone skirted jigs to a large degree too, and I think there's a function for that in your use. And I don't know if that's predominantly more for your largemouth fishing, but for smallmouth too. And I mean, any parting comments you want to make about that regarding some of the silicone use for smallmouth or largemouth, whatever?
Yeah, I use a little silicone. Like I'll put silicone on a swim jig, and occasionally, like if I'm skipping docks and that's all I'm doing, I'll throw a silicone jig because it's not really doing much. Like it's getting to bottom. It might sit there. I'll hop it a little bit and reel it out. I am a huge proponent for living rubber.
Where do you get it? Round, square, flat?
So
what?
I got Andes.
Small, medium, fine.
The flat medium is like my favorite.
Yeah.
And it's like nothing crazy. And my jigs are ugly. It's like one color of living rubber with some flash.
Yeah, nice.
But I'm just such a big advocate for living rubber, and I fish a small compact jig most of the time. And it's not small. I mean, it's a moderate sized jig, but I don't know, man. I think living rubber.
Favorite colors of living rubber, small, compact, ugly jigs?
Yeah, probably green and orange flash, like green pumpkin orange flash, or purple with green flash.
Oh God, that's wild.
Yeah,
There's
purple,
not
green.
too many other colors out there, though.
I
Too.
need to see some of these ugly jigs, man. Privately DM me. I got
Yeah.
to see them. I need
Purple,
to see
green flash is like, I don't know why people don't throw it. Like everyone throws
It's
June bug.
awesome.
a
Everyone
purple
throws.
jig with green flash is what you just said, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
everyone throws it.
So crazy.
Like everyone throws June bug when you get down to Florida, right? You get down to Tannic waters. Right, exactly. Okay, so
It works up north
it's
too.
instead of black and blue, I just throw the purple green flash, and it's unlike anything I've ever seen. It catches them when other guys in the boat can't touch them.
That's so crazy.
It is the real deal.
That's crazy.
And,
I had my buddy in the
You're
boat
talking
with
about
me,
emerald green flash.
like just the greenest flash. Yeah, just green.
Yes. June bug green colored flash.
No, dude, come on, man. You gonna make me pull up my June bug crankbait? I know what you're talking about, bro.
It's just like the greenest green.
There it is, baby. That crankbait, Ben. This one, first cast up in the St. Lawrence, a bass, and then nothing after that. Drop shots.
I love it.
Cast. Crazy, man. It was meant to be. June bug in ultra clear water. It made no sense.
I'm really excited to mess around with I stopped making a lot of silicone jigs like for years, right? And I still would make some and give them away to friends, and I just stopped posting them. And I like some real simple color combinations. But one of the things that I'm kind of interested in getting back into is starting to make some micro jigs. And particularly with a football head and some micro jigs, kind of off of the Kitech version, right? And I really want to mess around and play with some things, and then from there,
dude,
I'm
get
gonna
yourself
expand
some of those Z-Man footballs. Oh,
yeah,
well, you pour lead. Never mind.
I pour lead, right? I have a couple other things that I have a couple other molds coming that I don't care. Listen, I just got done pouring about 7 guys getting Jig Squad ready. Took a lot of my time, so a lot of my creativeness has been put on hold. I just got done pouring 75 wacky jigs from the Do It Molds Wacky Jig mold. And I'm going to tell you, Eric's Itchy Wacky, I'm going to modify and take on my own little experimental version and do different weird things with and have fun. And then the other thing I'm going to do, I'm going to make some micro football jigs and I'm going to have fun with it. And then the other one I got coming out is I'm going to make some black Marabou jigs with the freestyle jig mold from Do It Molds. But what I'm doing is I'm using a UV marker and I'm going to paint around the indentation for the eye with UV, and then I'm putting black eyes over the top of that UV. I'm ready to roll. I got some style coming, and I'm excited.
Ben, have you ever experimented like the chartreuse hat? How about ever the glow-in-the-dark fluorescent chartreuse?
No. So I don't get that crazy. Like,
okay.
A net head is so small. I don't know that it really like. I've seen people swear by chartreuse or red or I just don't know that I even care.
Right, especially with a Max M flatworm on the back of a jig, you're gonna catch him. I don't care if it's
gonna be dragging in the sand, right? Like
if it's a naked jig head, it's gonna get bit.
Yeah, yeah.
I love it though. That's awesome. Nah, I'd love to see some of those just plain old jigs. That's so crazy. That's the guide's mentality, man. I swear. I think it's you're out there so much, you see what works, but it's so interesting to me, you know. I mean,
it's
that's
so
flash.
simple.
Very interesting.
Yeah. I hope you guys, whether we're experienced or not, whether we come to the table with tons of jig making experience or not. I mean, I think the biggest thing is we have to allow ourselves to experience new design, new ideas, new materials from each other.
Heck yeah. We showed a lot tonight.
I think that makes us better in the long run. There's some more materials that I'm, in time as we go through the weeks here, I'm going to introduce and just put out there as options for people to use, because everyone's looking for a different type of material to use. So I'm excited about, Brian coming on next week, because you'll get the background next week, but Brian Schmidt. So Brian's from the East Coast, but found his way out to Colorado. And while out in Colorado, Brian Schmidt was the fly selector or the guy from Umpqua that would select what flies went into the catalogs.
That's so crazy. I
That's
probably bought
insane.
some of his flies.
He
How long ago was that?
He has got I within the last 10 years. And so Brian
That's so
started,
nuts.
and we're going to let Brian tell his story, but you want to talk about crazy stuff. Listen, if you want to talk about understanding some things that are out there and you want to see Brian Schmidt's style, you can go, he's got stuff on his website, Brian Schmidt Custom Baits. And then also you can go on Tackle Warehouse. He has he's famous for his Ned Dread, the Ned Dread, which is a limited material Ned jig. And then you can also look up the Schmidt bait.
I own the Ned Dread.
You own the Ned Dread. So
damn right.
And what
I know a good thing when I see it.
Hell yeah. What an influential experience. And I'm so excited to have Brian on. And I think the big thing is I want us all to learn from each other. Just with experiences. And I think Brian's been on each of our shows each time, and I consider him to be a guru. He's a master fly tire. He's the guy that walks the walk. And here he is making bass stuff, right? So if there's ever anyone that can illustrate why there's a combination between all these different things we're talking about, Brian Schmidt is going to be the epitome of showing us that this is part of the real experience. So, Ben, I love Ben Nowak because this guy is a Midwest fella, and I appreciate him tremendously, and his understanding of live scope and everything else is next level, and his ability to describe things to people is phenomenal. And I'm excited to see Ben do more with his bait making channel. He's the real deal, and the fact that I messaged Ben the other day and just said, out of nowhere, I'm going to plug for Ben before we get out of here in a second, you guys.
You mean one more plug for Ben, because you just plugged him good, and it's all straight up, man. He's the man.
I don't hang with dogs. I do not hang with dogs. And if you're on this show, it means I appreciate you and everyone in chat, everyone that keeps showing up. You guys all know I appreciate you tremendously. So Ben's got a new deal going on, and I'm going to let Ben talk about this whole little podcast Ben's got that he just started rolling out. So Ben, before we end the show, why don't you tell us a little bit about your latest adventure that you just started incorporating onto your channel on YouTube?
What?
Yeah, so I just got it just got to the point like I couldn't come up with content quickly enough, especially during the winter. And so I created Bass and Bourbon, which is essentially just a conversation where you sit down, I have some bourbon, and we talk bass fishing. It could be anything, right? And
what?
Last week we talked live scope and how it impacted, how I think it impacts people's ability to catch bigger than average fish, or whether or not we think smallmouth are just getting bigger in general, so we're seeing more. And then this week we'll have a different conversation. We just have a basis of conversation. We sit down, we talk, and I love being able to interact with people in the comment section as well. Like, that's my big thing on the lives, and that's why I enjoy doing them, is because, like, yeah, we have 3 talking heads here who all have our own opinions, but then you have 50, 100, however many people over in the comments that you can really build off of. So I just love that whole premise, and just doing those on Sunday night gives me an opportunity to talk bass fishing. So
that's so cool.
Yeah, very cool stuff.
So it's you with some bourbon and live, and the people in the chat.
Yeah, and then maybe a couple other guests, but it's just super impromptu, super conversational. There's no
love it, dude. That's
plan
awesome.
or anything. So I love it. I mean, it's just fun.
I love it. That's so awesome, man. Congratulations.
Yeah,
thanks for having me on, man. Like, this is fun because, like, picking other bait makers' brains on, materials or design styles or why they do things the way they do, or even literally, like, why do you like to make baits as cool as you like to make them? Whether it's because you think it impacts your ability to catch them, or because you like to be really refined, and like just everything about bait making and people's reasons why they do it and how they do it is so interesting. That's why I think this is sweet, man. Like, this conversation is unreal.
I appreciate it, Ben.
Covered some grounds. It was awesome. Loved it.
And the thing is, sometimes, like, each of the shows we do, like, there's similar things that come up, but it's always cool getting into it again and talking about different angles and just hearing other people's perspectives. Because I don't think there's been one, so this is what is this, Eric? This is our 3rd show, right? And I don't think there's, each night I've learned something new, right? And the first show was me and you, and we've already talked about this for months, right? So
Yeah.
Ben, it's an honor, brother. I love you to death, my man. I appreciate you a ton. Ben does a lot with on Alex Rudd's podcast. So check out Alex Rudd and the rest of our wonderful people out there. For you guys out there in the YouTube world that see some of the other fishing channels, there's going to be guys coming on soon from some of the other fishing channels that I appreciate and I love tremendously. There's my guy Larry Hadley jumping in. So Larry, I'm glad you were able to jump in. You guys, this is Jig Squad. So whether you're live or watching on replay, I appreciate you all. A thank you to Ben Nowak for jumping in tonight.
Thank you,
and taking care of the fact that Ryan Whitaker is down for the count, who we will have back on Jig Squad again. Maybe we might even pull a double and get Nowak and Ryan Whitaker on, because I think that would be some cool conversation regarding Lake Michigan and smallmouth. But that is it. Ben, any parting words before we bail tonight?
Sorry, I was muting. I was over there typing and I got caught in.
You're all good, buddy.
No, man. Thank you for having me on. Like, this is
all
so
right,
much
Eric,
fun to me. I love hopping on.
No,
you guys,
man,
I appreciate you all. Eric, parting words.
I got to talk to Ben first when we were on live with Alex Rudd, man. Got to know him. It was an amazing experience. I've watched Ben before I knew him, and just mad respect for his skills, and even deeper now that I got to hear about his color, design, and flow concepts. Yeah, man.
We've got a lot to discuss, people. There's a lot to come.
Guys, this is Jig Squad. Can't wait to fish with you one day, bro.
I know, dude. We got to make it happen.
We're going to do that.
We all got to get to go catch some smallmouth.
Heck yeah, man. Heck yeah.
Guys, thank you very much. Everyone, this is Jig Squad Live. We'll see you again next Thursday. We're out.
I love it.